And here we have his work Cold Mountain 5. Now, this is inspired by the nature poetry of the 8th century Buddhist poet Han Shan, also known as Cold Mountain. Marden made a cycle of paintings, drawings, and etchings that merge elements of Chinese calligraphy with the drip and splatter approach of abstract expressionist painters such as Jackson Pollock. And to create pieces like, well, this, what he's doing is he's using a long-handled brush, giving us a sense of almost randomness in the work. To him, these works impose a kind of distance in relation to what you're working on. The brush does. It can be good to use a tool that's somewhat resistant to what you think you want. You get a lot of accidents, so you have to start working with those accidents. Now, he begins with a series of prints before translating the work to paint, as in this piece. Now, he's doing a couple of things. Remember I said he's going into more of this gestural idea, and he's pushing back. So what looks like the foreground, the darker lines, are applied first, and then he goes in and adds the lighter lines, exactly the opposite of what we would otherwise expect. You would expect that you add the lighter lines and then you get darker moving forward. But he's kind of mimicking some ideas from, for example, Chinese landscape painting, which we see on the right, where they do the same thing. They're using these lines and pushing them forward and pulling them back based on how saturated the color is. So he's getting that idea from these paintings. He's also looking at sort of the general form of Asian characters and trying to incorporate them into this by painting them with one almost continuous line over the surface. Now, this piece is actually the finished product, Cold Mountain 5, but it starts with a series of etchings, which he does, and to make these etchings, he employed a technique called sugar lift. So working like a Chinese calligrapher from top to bottom and across the surface of the plate, he uses sticks to brush a sugar-based solution over an aquatint ground. Then a layer of varnish is applied over the entire plate before it's immersed in warm water. Now, of course, the water will dissolve the sugar, which means the lines that he just created will be the inked portion of the plate, which will, of course, create the print. And so when inked and printed, we get something that resembles Marden's gestural brushwork. We get those sort of drips or drip feeling. Maybe, to me, it always feels more like the stick kind of skipped in areas where you see repetitious dots. You get these lines that you can tell where he's refilling the stick or the brush and areas where he's not. It's a unique piece, and it reminds us a lot of Jackson Pollock. The difference is he's creating something in monotone. There aren't multiple colors. And as we look at it, it's again kind of asking for that judgment. After all, it's not referring to anything. Remember, Pollock at one point signs one of his paintings with his handprints in this very primitive prehistoric idea. Marden isn't doing any of that. He's not trying to reference anything except himself in the painting you're looking at. And something like this, again, we have that conversation rolling in our head, asking what we think about it and why we think that.